Tomorrow there will be no procedures. We're going to clean you out seriously, the doctor told me in the evening after another day of panchakarma. Great, I thought, and to relax, I smoked a bit of local wild weed with one of the staff members. The organic weed he brought had absolutely nothing in common with the horror in a plastic bag from Brooklyn. Neither the smell, nor the appearance, nor the taste. In front of me lay a small, dried bush of some unknown plant. I picked off some leaves and buds and took a few puffs. No comparison to the New York nightmare with 30% THC that makes you angry and hyper. Here, everything was soft and unobtrusive, and I started thinking. Let's suppose, I thought, that imagination exists. Although, why suppose? It undoubtedly exists. Doesn't matter whether it's a process, brain activity, or the very essence of a person. Then, where does it take form? And where do our inner worlds arise? What is the nature of the space where the images we create live? If imagination exists, and it does, I just created it, and it has an essence, I just gave it certain characteristics, then it must exist in some kind of space. This space is likely flexible enough to contain the full richness of human creativity. Our imagined worlds are infinite, and storing them requires something greater than just the human brain. We need a space that can adapt to diverse forms and scenarios. But where does it unfold? In which space? Perhaps it's not individual, but rather shared, a kind of common storage, a cloud of sorts, where all imagined worlds are kept. If every person, when imagining something, accesses this space, does that mean imagination isn't strictly a personal ability? Could it be that the act of imagining is not an individual creation, but rather an activation of a shared potential available to all? That would mean there's a collective space of imagination. Some philosophers do think so, suggesting that there is a shared potential from which people draw archetypes and images for their imaginations. Like with the Viking. As soon as we think about him, we picture a bearded redhead in a horned helmet. Even though, if you think about it, it's complete nonsense. Back then, people tried to shave because human fleas were the worst parasites, and horns on helmets, pure fantasy. But still, when we close our eyes, we picture that Viking, beard and horns. Why? Because that image became an archetype. As soon as you decide to imagine a Viking, you use a ready-made image already living in your mind. We save time by not creating a new one from scratch. However, another perspective says that even if imagination draws from a common pool, it still remains strictly personal. Each person, thanks to their unique experience, creates images that, even if similar to others, are still entirely their own. Who's right? The answer depends on who is practicing imagination. What can we create in our imagination? Modern science distinguishes three main categories: images, sensations, and ideas. But some people can imagine not just images, but also sounds, which allows composers to create entire musical universes. Imagination goes beyond the visible world, creating not only visuals, but also sound, text, emotion. So, as an ordinary person, I can create just three categories. Or what? Maybe these aren't just elements of imagination, but its qualities or states. The bush the worker brought was quite decent. Suddenly, I craved something sweet. And then I remembered a chocolate bar I hadn't eaten on the plane. It had gotten lost in my backpack among cables, mouse, headphones, and pills. I rummaged through my suitcase for a long time and finally found it. Contemplating eternal matters, I greedily devoured the chocolate. The next morning, just after I finished my meditation, the doctor knocked on my door. "No massage today," he said. "Today is Vamana." Vamana is therapeutic vomiting induced by special herbs. I drank the bitter liquid from the jug and realized I would now be puking in front of the doctor until lunch. I was terribly ashamed to admit that I had eaten chocolate during the night, but despite the embarrassment, I kept drinking the sweet bitter tea, which reminded me of licorice and honey. 15 minutes later, I was on my knees over a basin, puking chocolate and struggling to explain to the doctor that this brown liquid poor anatomy was just chocolate, eaten under the influence of the local weed. Every attempt to speak ended with retching, and I bent over the basin again. The doctor, shocked, watched the contents of the basin, pat me on the back and looking surprised. "Well," he said after a pause, you're full of crap." "Yes, doctor, that's true. I'm truly full of crap, made of sugar, cocoa, milk fat, emulsifiers, and flavorings. Crap that doesn't rot for a year without refrigeration because it has nothing to do with real food." A couple of hours later, I was able to explain to the doctor that it was just chocolate, and we laughed about it. The evening passed in attempts to reflect on imagination, and I was drained. After dinner, I just sat, watching the sunset, dumbly and happily watching the sunlight play on the water. Maybe that's how it should be. Maybe we should think less and enjoy life more, appreciating the simple moments.
I've been walking for miles with a weight on my spine. All these memories packed in a crooked line. Every face, every fear, every word I regret. Tied up in silence, I never forget. Is there someone out there who can see what I hide? Who can open this lock that I carry inside? Is there a doctor for the soul and the heart? Someone to help me take this apart. Lay down the stones I've been dragging for years. Take off this backpack of pain and fears. I've been smiling for cameras, playing my role, but there's rust in the corners, dust on my soul. Every step feels like walking through glue. I've been holding too much that I never knew. Is there someone who listens to echoes and sighs? Who can catch the weight falling from my eyes? Is there a doctor for the soul and the heart? Someone to help me take this apart. Lay down the stones I've been dragging for years. Take off this backpack of pain and fears. If I leave it all here in the dark, in the sand, will I rise a bit lighter with nothing in hand? Can I breathe without history holding me tight? Can I sleep through the night? Is there a doctor for the soul and the heart? Someone to help me take this apart. Let go the storm.